The nightmare always began with the scent of bergamot and blood. Everett Carlisle jolted awake in his fourth-floor walk-up, fingers clawing at the cigarette burns on his collarbone, real wounds from an unreal night. Moonlight bled through the cracked window, illuminating the only valuable thing left in the room. A Steinway Grand, its lacquer gleaming like a fresh bruise. The pawn shop ticket beneath it, 12 days until redemption, fluttered in the draft. He'd played Rachmaninoff at the first ritual. That was the cruelty of it. How the Elegie's mournful chords had slithered between the guests' delighted gasps as the knives came out. How they'd paid him $25,000 to soundtrack their butchery. 3 days later, the NYU library corral stank of mildew and denial. Everett hunched over a microfiche reader, scrolling through the Sentinel archives from 1893. His hands still shook since the ritual, a pianist's purgatory. The Ishtar Society's annual Saturnalia gathering drew Fifth Avenue's finest, read the yellowed article. A photo showed men in wolf head masks toasting goblets. In the corner, blurred but unmistakable, a piano. Blood covenants, Everett muttered, cross-referencing with a stolen anthropology text. Ritual transference of vitality through synchronized art and violence. See also scapegoating, exploitation of marginalized. Mr. Carlisle. He slammed the book shut. The librarian stood holding a manila envelope, her glasses reflecting the storm-gray light. Special delivery, marked urgent. Inside, a single black-bordered card. Winter solstice convergence. Pianist required. Repertoire, Chopin, opus. 9 number 2.0. Fee, $50,000. The paper slit his thumb. A bead of blood bloomed, vanishing as the card absorbed it. The precinct reeked of burnt coffee and hopelessness. Officer Ruiz squinted at Everett's phone. "You're telling me you saw this kid at some rich folk party?" She zoomed in on the screenshot, a local news ticker about Diego Martinez, 19, last seen delivering Chinese takeout in the Bronx. The same boy who'd worn white silk at the ritual, who'd stopped screaming by the coda. "I'm just concerned," Everett lied. Ruiz's printer wheezed. The missing person's form showed Diego's tattoos, a stick-and-poke crown on his wrist, the exact design Everett had watched Ms. Harlow slice off with a pearl-handled razor. The invitation pulsed on the piano bench. Outside, sleet needled the homeless camp under the Queensboro Bridge. Everett's rent check had bounced that morning. "You'll go back," the guilt hissed. "For Diego, for the next Diego ... You'll go back," the hunger countered. "For the Steinway, for the pills that quiet the screams." When he closed his eyes, he saw the society's ballroom, how the chandeliers had dripped liquid shadow, how the guests' jewels glinted like animal eyes in the dark. How easy it would be to accidentally record the next ritual on his phone, to be a hero, to be solvent. He texted the burner number. "I'm in." The reply came instantly. "Wear gloves. The ivories stain." Coda, the first ritual, flashback. June 21st, 11:58 p.m. Miss Harlow led him blindfolded into the rotunda. "Remember, don't stop playing no matter what occurs." The guest's murmurs died as he began the Elegie. When the blindfold slipped at measure 23, he saw them. 12 figures in white, drugged and docile, strung between marble columns like spider silk. A man in a pinstripe suit approached the first victim. "For prosperity," he crooned, slicing her palm. Blood pattered into a chalice as Everett's crescendo crested. By dawn, his PayPal held $25,000. By noon, he'd scrubbed his skin raw. The Hudson Valley estate loomed like a rotten tooth against the December sky. Everett's Uber idled at the gate, its headlights catching the glint of new symbols etched into the iron. Eyes within eyes, hungry and watching. Miss Harlow emerged, her silhouette sharp as a scalpel. "No phone," she said, palm outstretched. Everett surrendered the burner, its hidden recording app dormant but ready. She smiled as though tasting the lie. Inside, the air thrummed with a deeper decadence. The ballroom's walls now bore frescoes of flayed saints, their agony twisting in time to the string quartet's dissonant prelude. The piano, a black lacquered behemoth, waited on a dais circled by 13 empty thrones. "Chopin," Ms. Harlow reminded him, adjusting his bow tie with glacial precision. "Opus 9, number 2, and Mr. Carlisle?" Her nail pricked his jugular. "Do keep your eyes closed this time." Allegro, the Feast of Fools. The guests arrived in a murmur of caviar and catastrophe. Everett recognized the Swiss ambassador, a tech billionaire notorious for offshore labor camps, and then Senator Eleanor Voss. Her pearl necklace coiled like a noose. She winked at him, lipstick the color of arterial spray. He played. The nocturne's lullaby melody trembled under his fingers as the doors groaned open. 12 figures in sheer linen shuffled in, children no older than 16, their eyes voids of opiate compliance. The 13th victim trailed behind, a girl with a rosewood violin clutched to her chest. A musician, he realized, like him. "Consummation requires harmony," intoned Thaddeus Wexler, materializing from shadow. His tuxedo smelled of mothballs and myrrh. "Begin the pas de deux." The violinist's bow struck a searing A note. Everett's score warped, the piano keys bled ink, staves twisting into barbed wire. He played faster, chasing the girls' frenzied arpeggios. Around them, guests paired with victims, blades glinting. Senator Voss pressed a scalpel to a boy's throat, humming along to the music. A scream detonated. The violinist's A string snapped, lashing her cheek. Wexler caught the blood in a jade chalice, his chant guttural. "From the hollow ones we drink, from the silent ones we rise." The chalice passed. Each sip left the drinkers younger, their wrinkles dissolving as the children aged. The boy in Voss's grasp withered to a husk, his hair whitening as hers thickened to onyx. Everett's phone burned in his shoe, useless. Focus. Memorize every face dot. In the cacophony, a hand seized Everett's wrist. Ms. Harlow dragged him into a secret passage, her breath sour with panic. "You'll die tonight if you keep gaping." "Why care?" he spat. She yanked open a peephole. Below, the violinist's corpse lay splayed on the piano strings, her blood threading the soundboard. "They're tuning it," Ms. Harlow whispered. "With her. The next ritual needs a live instrument. That could be you." A photo fluttered from her pocket. Ms. Harlow in 1973, her eyes bandaged, wrists bound with silk. "They never let you quit," she said. "Only ascend or end." Footsteps echoed. She shoved him toward the dais. "Finish the piece." The nocturne's final measures were a minefield. Everett's sweat warped the keys. Senator Voss swayed by the piano, her rejuvenated face a grotesque mask of youth. "Bravo, maestro," she purred, dropping a diamond pendant into his breast pocket. "A bribe, a threat, ... As the last chord faded, Wexler applauded. A standing ovation. The guests rose, their true forms flickering, antlered shadows, eyes like supernovas. The walls wept tar. Everett fled to the garden, vomiting into the snow. His phone had recorded 3 minutes of static and a single clear sentence from Voss. "The Chicago chapter wants him for the equinox." A hand gripped his shoulder. The violinist's ghost stood beside him, her hollowed face pressed to his ear. "They're coming," she hissed. Unstring the piano. He looked down. The diamond pendant had sprouted legs, skittering into his sleeve. 3 a.m. Everett's apartment stank of burnt hair. He'd smashed the pendant with a hammer, revealing a mic inside. Now, hunched over Diego's missing persons file, he circled the violinist's name. Lila Chen, 17, Juilliard Prep, and froze. Her student ID photo matched the girl in his Juilliard class from 8 years ago. The doorbell rang. A courier offered a velvet box. Inside, a metronome, its pendulum a human finger. A note in Wexler's spidery script. Our next movement requires fortissimo. Its entrance guarded by a homeless man with milky eyes. Everett bribed him with the diamond from Senator Voss. "They'll smell your fear," the man rasped, pocketing the gem. "Breathe through sage." Inside, shelves coiled like a serpent's spine, stacked with ledgers bound in human skin. Everett's gloved hands trembled as he flipped through a 19th century volume. June 1832. Transference successful. Cholera victims' vitality diverted to members. Note: musical resonance amplifies harvest. A photograph slipped free. Thaddeus Wexler, identical to the man at the solstice ritual, standing beside a Civil War general. Behind them, Miss Harlow, her face younger but eyes ancient, stared at the camera with frayed defiance. Footsteps echoed. Everett stuffed the photo into his coat and ducked behind a pillar. 2 society acolytes wheeled in a crate labeled Equinox, fresh strings. Inside, surgical tools gleamed beside a jar of human vocal cords. Lila's ghost hissed. "Gio!" The safe house stank of camphor and regret. The middle-aged man from the first ritual, Martin, chain-smoked by a barred window. His left hand lacked 3 fingers. "They take pieces of you," he said, waving his stump. "Not just flesh. Luck. Love. You ever notice how your life unravels faster after each ritual?" Everett's mind flashed to his eviction notice, the way his piano keys now stuck in rainy weather. "How do I stop them?" Martin laughed, a wet, rattling sound. "You don't. You survive. I tried leaking photos in 2008. Next day, my daughter." He trailed off, lighting a new cigarette. "Wexler's not a man. He's a pattern. You break one thread, another forms." A knock. Miss Harlow stood in the doorway, holding a syringe of amethyst liquid. "Time's up, Martin." Everett lunged, but she jabbed the needle into Martin's neck. His screams dissolved into moths, wings beating a dirge as his body crumbled to ash. "Poor choice of friends," Ms. Harlow sighed. "Now it's your turn. Join properly, or end like him." Her apartment was a mausoleum of opulence. Glass cases displayed relics, a lock of Beethoven's hair, a dagger etched with Ishtar's choir, and a faded Juilliard acceptance letter, Everett's own, from 2014. "We've always watched you," she said, pouring absinthe into bone china. "You think it's coincidence they hired a pianist with a sister who died of cystic fibrosis? The society thrives on borrowed time." Everett's chest tightened. Clara's final words, "You'll play for both of us," curdled in his memory. "You took her breath. We redirected it." Miss Harlow unbuttoned her cuff, revealing a scarred glyph. "I was their violinist in '73. My son. They said he'd live if I played. He died anyway. Now I tune their instruments and they let me pretend I'm not meat." She pressed a contract to the table. "Permanent performer. Salary, $2 million per year. Terms, Surrender autonomy, post-mortem asterisk. Sign, and you'll never fear death. Or, she nodded to the window where Senator Voss waved from a limo. Become a lesson. That night, Everett dreamt of Clara. She sat at the Steinway, playing a warped Clair de Lune. "They're coming," she whispered, sheet music bleeding into a map of the estate. Unstring the piano. He woke to a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the tunnel. Harlow." The church basement buzzed with urgency. Ms. Harlow jammed a crowbar into the crate, marked asterisk equinox asterisk. "Wexler's shipping this to Chicago. If it arrives, they'll anchor the ritual there." Inside, Clara's decomposed hands grafted onto a marionette's strings. "Your sister's a counterweight now," Ms. Harlow said. "Break the piano and you break their hold." Sirens wailed outside. "Cops," Everett hissed. "Worse, Voss's men." They fled as shadows swallowed the church. Ms. Harlow shoved a flash drive into his hand. Evidence, Senate briefings, 1985 to 2023, before sprinting into oncoming traffic. A taxi struck her, but the body vanished before impact. Back home, Everett uploaded the files. Headlines blared, "Senator Voss implicated in cult killings." The screen glitched. Wexler's face replaced the news feed. "Clever boy, but chaos feeds us too." The walls wept. Lila's ghost screamed as the Steinway's lid slammed shut on Everett's fingers. Tick, 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 dot, star. The metronome's finger pointed north, to Chicago, to the equinox. The Chicago Opera House loomed like a ribcage picked clean. Everett's breath fogged in the March air as he slipped through a service entrance, the flash drive sewn into his coat lining. Miss Harlow's final words clawed at him. "The piano's heart is under the stage. Cut its strings and it dies." But the society had rewritten the score. The grand piano stood center stage, its lid propped open like a coffin. Clara's skeletal hands had been grafted onto the strings, tendons fused with steel. Senator Voss waited in the front row, her rejuvenated face glowing. "We've been eager for your encore," she purred. Everett climbed to the dais, hands trembling. He'd swapped Chopin's Nocturne for Schoenberg's Verklärte Nacht, a dissonant wrecking ball. But the sheet music slithered, notes rearranging themselves into the society's hymn. Wexler emerged, his skin translucent, veins pulsing with black ichor. "You misunderstand, Mr. Carlisle. You're not the saboteur. You're the sacrifice." The auditorium doors slammed shut. Everett played. The piano fought him, keys biting like teeth. Clara's hands plucked at his sleeves, her voice now threading the music. "You let them take me. Now we'll take you." The audience chanted. Shadows peeled from the walls, ghosts of every victim, every performer who'd fed the society. Lila Chen's specter dragged her bow across Everett's throat, drawing blood that splattered the keys. He lunged for the piano's underbelly, wire cutters in hand. Snip. A string snapped, recoiling like a serpent. The opera house shuddered. Voss laughed. "Did you truly think we'd keep our heart in one instrument?" Above, 1,000 pianos materialized, suspended from the rafters, each a replica, each thrumming with stolen breath. They surrounded him. Wexler's touch seared Everett's wrists, fusing them to the keyboard. "You'll serve longer than Ms. Harlow, longer than me." The transformation was exquisite, his bones hollowed into soundposts, fingers splintering into ivory. Clara's hands stitched themselves into his chest, her laughter a metronome in his marrow. Tick, 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 dot star. Senator Voss approached, trailing Rott and Chanel. "We'll name this one Concerto for the Complicit." she said, stroking the piano's newly carved lid. 2 months later, a Juilliard sophomore answers a Craigslist ad. Pianist wanted, no questions asked, $100,000 per night. In Chicago, tourists marvel at the opera house's acoustics, how the oldest piano weeps during quiet passages, its wood grain shaped like a man's face. And deep underground, the Ishtar Society toasts with goblets of mercury and starlight. The cycle, unbroken, plays on.